recorded. Okay, well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first NYU ECNU Center for Computational Chemistry seminar of the semester. It's my very great pleasure today to introduce our speaker, Professor Choi from Kyungpook National University in South Korea. So Cheol did his bachelor's and master's degrees in chemistry at Seoul National University. And then he did a PhD in Georgetown with Professor Miklos Kertész, and then a postdoc with Mark Gordon. And from there, he started his independent career back in Korea at Kyungpook. And since then, he's risen to the ranks of full professor and director of the BK21 Research Center. And Cheol's interests particularly in the development and application of electronic structure theory, especially for excited states in conjugated molecules, in biological chromophores, as we'll see in some of the work he talks about today. So please take it away, Cheol. Handing over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Will. First of all, I really like to thank Will for this wonderful opportunity so that we can introduce some of our listener work. Also, I first have to say sorry to Will because that maybe somehow Will's first email to me was maybe in the spam directory, so I couldn't really reply him properly. So he sent me second one. Then I was a little bit surprised that. So anyway, also it is wonderful to meet the students and the professors of China. I really want to visit this time, but it was too tight. So I'm sorry that we have to do this online. But I really wish to meet you in person in the near future. Okay, what I'd like to talk about today is something we have done for the last maybe about 5 or 6 years, and then we developed a new quantum theory, which wasn't really intended initially, but somehow we did it, which we called MR-SF-TDDFT. And then let me tell you the story why we developed this and what are the advantages of using this and so on. Okay, initially we wanted to study the ultra-fast dynamics of the excited state. This is basically the interaction between lights and matters, right? So even photovoltaics is this kind of part of this, and photosynthesis, molecular motors, and the GFP protein, light-emitting protein, also some various other, even though your television or LED is part of this. But all of these processes eventually boils down to one very important part of potential surfaces, which we call conic intersections. So in order to properly describe all these dynamics properly, at least we need to have a good first order description of conic intersections. But unfortunately, Massimo would just show that all single reference space theory, including single state capacitor 2, fails to describe this. So let me first briefly tell you why it has to be like this. So single reference theory, for example, coupled cluster, you start with the Hartree fault, right? Then you calculate S0, which is your ground states. And then you can apply coupled cluster to have a more accurate ground state. But in the case of excited state, you have to go with the equation motion coupled cluster, which is not exactly, they are the different theory, and there is no direct coupling between the two. As a result, that the description of conic section is not properly done here. Likewise, ADC is again a MP2 theory for the ground state. Excited state also perturbation has a similar issues, and the DFT-TDDFT also has similar issues. And also another issue here would be that if you use a coupled cluster, you really need to go very high order excitations to get the accurate proper electron correlation descriptions compared to DFT-TDDFT. DFT-TDDFT cone sham orbital contains enough of electron correlation already there, so you do not need to go that much high excitations to include more proper correlations. So there are differences and similarities of this. So I just described DFT-TDDFT. To get the TDDFT calculations, you first need to do DFT ground states, right? But it's a cone sham orbitals that contains enough sufficient electron correlations. And then using this density, you get some sort of responses. And using these responses, you express your excited states. So you do not really directly calculate particular states. You sort of get the delta energy from this scheme. Again, if you think about ground singlet and the first excited states, they are different theory. So again, there is no coupling, so that the proper description of quantum section is also here a big issue here. And then what about multilaterance? Multilaterance, CASSCF is the starting reference, but the CASSCF has a multilateral features, but unfortunately it misses the dynamic correlations. Therefore, you have to do perturbation theory to recover dynamic correlations. But once you perturb your system, it's a perturbed system. Therefore, there are some issues there, so that we have to diagonalize it. So the way to do it, it's a multi-state CAS-52. Once you arrive here, it's very heavy. So that's an issue. And let me summarize these a little bit. So the challenge here is that DFT certainly includes dynamic correlations, but DFT cannot describe the diabaticals and bone breakings. Is because of non-dynamic part is not included, because this is a single reference in the form. TDDFT is wonderful theory, but does not have the doubly excited configurations. And I will come back to this point, what would be the consequence of this, and wrong topology, meaning that the ground state has to be computed by the DFT. And then there comes a very nice theory, spin-flip TDDFT appears, and very nicely includes the doubles, which means that it can include more non-dynamic types of or dynamic somehow included, but has an issue again. And CASSCF, I already described that this is a wonderful theory for non-dynamic correlations, but the dynamic is missing here. So if you want to do dynamic simulations, we really need to have a really practical theory so that we can run the really long trajectories. But at the same time, you have to have a good first order proper descriptions of this important part of particular surfaces. So we need the both, right? We need the practicality and as well as first order accuracy. Maybe this is too difficult, but this is where we were kind of stuck, and we couldn't move any further from this point unless we need to do something. So this is a moment that we decided to think about developing new quantum theories. So we had some idea. So we somehow we need to start somewhere. So we thought that spin-flip idea is wonderful because it has doubles. Somehow, if we could improve this theory by introducing some multilaterance idea to it, then maybe the things could be resolved. So we thought about the dynamic and non-dynamic correlations quite a lot, and eventually we come up with this theory, which we called MR. You can call it multi-Lafrance, but we call it mixed Lafrance because it's more like a DFT theory. So basic idea is very simple. But to explain this a little bit, let me first introduce spin flip TDDFT first. Spin flip TDDFT start with the high spin triplet. This is the Lafrance. So all these response theory consider excited state as a property of ground state. So you really first have to calculate the ground state. In this case, we calculate the high spin triplet, which is very interesting. And then you do the spin flip to get these configurations. For example, if you spin flip, very simple. Okay, so you flip this alpha, right, and then send it to here, then which means that you flipped alpha to beta, then you got this, right? So you got doubles. So you get the doubly excited configuration from the ground singlets point of view, but you get this by single excitation. This is the beauty of the spin flip TDDFT. And these doubles turned it out to be very, very important components to describe things very well. Okay, now what are the problems of a spin flip? So please look at these two configurations here. Okay, so you can get this configuration from this Lafrance by single excitation. How? You excite this guy to here, right? Then you got this by moving one electron, right? But the trouble is that you cannot get this one from this by single excitation. That is a problem of a spin flip TDDFT. So you have to have these two to have a proper spin adaptations. So this is a quite clear reason. So we are missing the important responses. What other people have done so far is typical. So if you miss some configuration, you will think about going with the higher rank of excitation, simply meaning double excited or triple excitations to generate these red ones. However, that once you go that area, as becomes a really heavy theory, as it becomes very expensive and also quite complicated. So the idea we had is very simple. Instead of going higher rank, we observed that there is another Lafrance here, which is M7-1, and you get this configuration just by single excitation from this Lafrance. So instead of going higher rank, we introduce another Lafrance. So in this case, we have two Lafrances, right? So using these two Lafrances, each Lafrance generate responses. So we are doubling the response space of a spin flip. Okay, so that is the idea. And of course, there is an issue if you do it, because the response theory has to start from the pure state. But once you have two Lafrances, then the final density becomes a mixed state. So that was really the biggest challenge of this. We somehow overcome that by introducing spinor transformation, we call. So the reason there is a problem is because alpha and beta spin function, we somehow combine them into S1 and S2. And as soon as we did it, we were able to represent two Lafrances into one single Lafrance. We call it hypothetical Lafrance. Since we have one Lafrance, now the density becomes idempotent again, so we were able to derive all the equations. So this is it. This is the key idea of this. So basically, we were able to add two Lafrances to resolve many issues. Okay, now, what are the differences as compared to the TDDFT you normally use? Okay, so the difference is that we start from T1 state, high spin T1, meaning the M sub S plus 1. Triplet has, triplet means 3 states that degenerate, right? So you have M sub S plus 1, 0, minus 1. You have a 3, right? So you calculate this. And then we also use MSFS -1 and +1. We combine them. From there, we got a responses. From these responses, we generate all these states. Now, you can generate, please look at this. We can generate all singlet, including ground states. Oh, sorry. So your ground state typically has to be calculated by the DFT, but now you can get it from responses. So all of these singlet states are properly coupled among themselves. So there's no issue of such problems. And also you can get all triplets. But these triplets are MSFS 0 triplet because of these particular reasons. Also, you can also generate a quintet too, which I did not say it here. So another big difference is that in the case of TDDFT, you really have to use DFT for the ground singlet, right? So you have to always use the combination DFT and TDDFT. But here, you do not need a reference. There is a T1 MSFS +1, but we already have another T1 from MSFS 0 triplet, right? So we simply don't need the reference triplet. Sorry, this is a comparison. So your CASCF, DFT, TDDFT, spinflip TDDFT, and this is our final. Well, we various different criteria. Oh, sorry, my series. Okay. Okay, so there's many criteria. So you do see that some issues with the other theories, but all these formal limitations is gone in our theory. Okay, how fast? This might be your first question, right? So we created new quantum software, which we call Open Quantum Platform. It's basically a Fortran, but wrapped with the Python, so you can easily connect with your software. Basically, if you do the response calculations, you first need to do the reference DFT calculation, right? That's our SSA part, which is a red curve here. This is a timing in seconds. Wall clock timing was done on 48 cores of this CPU. And the black is a Davison iteration, which is a response part of calculation. You see that the Davison is just a fraction of the whole calculations. So in this case, you just spend a little bit more extra computations, but you get a lot more back. So with this, this might be better for you. Now with this theory, you can get better conic intersection properly. We can describe. You can even describe bone breaking, which we haven't really studied that well. But if you really want to study chemical reactions, bone breaking, I think that this is where this may be the right starting point. And diuretical, certainly. DFT cannot calculate this, right? If you do the DFT for the diuretical, you would get a really high energy, right? But now you can get a proper diureticals. Singlet, this is what we call open shell singlet systems. We also try the core excitation, which is these are really fashionable because now we have a really high intense X-ray, right? So that they would do X-ray absorption, time-resolved X-ray absorption these days. So for this, we also try this, and it works beautifully. And doubles, probably you not really know, but so why conical section DFT TDDFT has an issue? Because your ground state has to be computed by the DFT. So you have to use two different theories, right? So if you do, you would have some linear crossing, not like the conic intersection like this. So this is a big issue of the TDDFT. Now, we also try the non-dynamic coupling because that's really the key quantity if you want to study the non-adiabatic the transitions, because it would determine the hoppings, right? So we try this, and we develop we call it TLF, truncated Leibniz formula, which is really fast. And also with this, we calculate this numerically, by the way, and give us a very accurate as compared to very high level theories. And conical section 2-1, this is another challenging case where high-level theory predicted that you do have conical sections, but so you have a red, which is bright states. Photon is observed to here, and then there is you can go down and there's conical section. Then you hop to the dark states. Dark is a multi-configuration state. But in the case of CASCF, as you can see, the red's supposed to be here, but 2 or 3 electron volts higher there. It's because the CASCF misses the dynamic correlations. And on the other hand, TDDFT, most people think that TDDFT is okay. Certainly, it looks like okay at the front quantum region because your red is below your blue, so that's the right order. But once you are near the conical section region, this blue is supposed to be stabilized to have a conical section, but it doesn't because of missing doubles. This is a really simple case. We can see some theory works and some theory doesn't. So, but remarkably, our theory properly stabilized this part. It's because we do have a double excited configuration. So this is the importance of doubles to properly have conical sections. So, so if you don't have these conical sections properly, then your dynamics is strongly affected by that, right? So we wanted to do a dynamic MD, non-adiabatic molecular dynamic simulations. That's were our initial intentions, right? That's how we started them, but we couldn't do it until we developed new quantum theories, right? This is so for us. This is really it took quite a long time to really come to this point. And so we just try the this and that samples, and this is the time. This is one of the first we tried it and found something interesting. Thymine looks like this. Okay. By the way, thymine is one of the nucleobase and one of the very important species. If it's in the gas phase, it has the longest excited lifetime among all nucleobase. So people are interested in why it has it stays in the excited state long, right? Oh, sorry. So so S2 is bright state in this case. So this is S2 state, 100%. This is the occupation number of each state. But what's interesting about this, that within 100 femtosecond, you do see a huge change in all the population. Initially, 100% S2 has a really oscillations in the population within 100 femtoseconds, and about 100 femtoseconds, all the population of S2 transfer to S1. Okay, so you are here. You're here and you're here because this is a different time scale. After that, very slowly, population of S2 is decaying to the ground states, right? This is about 6 picoseconds. The first one is 30 femtoseconds time scales. This is very interesting. Why then the first one is so fast? So we checked some of the vibrations, which is bone length alternation along this. Then we observed very highly coherent vibration motions that drives this population transfer. And so using this, we were described that there is really fast population transfer from S2 to S1, and then there's slow decay to the ground states. Okay, so that was really interesting, the first studies. And then we moved on to the second one, Uracil case, because this is again simple, you can see. In the case of uracil, the shapes are almost identical, except that this hydrogen, it was methane, but now is replaced with hydrogen, right? And one of the issues of this pyrimidine base is that this double bond is subjective to some chemical reactions, like in this case, hydration or dimerization. Thymine dimerization is one of the problems of skin cancer, right? So people try to understand the reason behind that. Here we first studied hydration, trying to understand how this actually occurred. There have been many mechanisms suggested before, but none of them has really attractive the mechanism. So we try this. We discover something new here again. And of course, this first coherent vibration exists here, just like the thiamine. However, we found the second very interesting out-of-plane bending of this hydrogen, which we haven't seen in the thiamine, because thiamine, this hydrogen is metal, right? Metal is way much heavier, so that this vibration is way much slower. But because of hydrogen, you do have a really fast this torsion motions. In about the 40 femtoseconds here, you're already in the ground states. 40 femtosecond, you are in already ground state and become a angle 180. 180. Well, initially we couldn't believe, because 180 means that one hydrogen down there, another hydrogen up here, and that persists. At almost the end of our simulation, 5 picoseconds. This is very high in energy, but in the ground states. And using this, now we were able to suggest a different mechanism. So basically, you photo-excite this system to the first excited state, and then quickly convert it 40 femtosecond, right? 40 femtosecond, you arrive here. And if there is water around here, there is just a gentle barrier, about the 10K couple mole barrier, you could simply have this hydration. So this could be a pretty good, I think, the mechanism, because in terms of barrier height-wise, so it would be very nice that someone can observe this high energy species from experiment. So we are looking for that. Okay, this may be related with the wheel. So, because of I add this for wheel. Okay, so we also apply this. We don't want to compete with any other people. Okay, so we just want to check our theories. So there is a mechanism, suggested mechanism, is that the PL means a planar. Okay, planar, and P means this part is the rotate torsion. Okay, so you have two possible torsion here, this bond and this bond. So let's call that this torsion as a P torsion, and this torsion called it I torsion, right? So as soon as you have I torsion, it simply goes to the ground state. A high chance of going to the ground state. So, but even in the case of P torsion, it doesn't really go to the ground state, because the conic section to ground is pretty high here. And the PL means that just staying at the planar. Okay, so this is what suggested by the experimental group in the 2017, and so the reason what they did is that they cool it down. When they cool it down, they observe fluorescence. In the high temperature, fluorescence disappears. So their logic is that if you cool it down, the molecule somehow freezes in a planar structure more, so that because this planar structure has a higher oscillator strength. So that is their idea, right? So, well, we did this. I think I already showed this to the wheel, but let me repeat it again. What we first studied is a potential surface along two torsions, right? So along P torsion and I torsion. P torsion corresponds to this, and I torsion corresponds to this. there are three different theories: CAS-CF, the CAS-PT2, our theory, MR-SF. Our theory is solid curve here. In the case of p-torsion, all three sort of has a nearly zero barrier. So p-torsion is freely, you can think about p-torsion can easily occur. On the other hand, I-torsion is an issue here. In the case of CAS-CF, again, CAS-CF still think that I is freely rotate, but both our theory and the higher level CAS-PT2 saying that there's a barrier, there's a barrier right here. So we did the trajectory calculations. We actually observed completely different trajectories and in terms of torsion angles. In the case of p-torsion here, you see that initially initially it mostly stay in the planar, but eventually you will see the three lines, right? First group, this curve and third curve. So the middle one is the one that's staying in the planar, but eventually it is have two groups, right? Two rotated groups, 90 degree, plus and minus, but they are the same thing, by the way. But on the other hand, I-torsion, we don't see that up until 3 picosecond. Although there are once in a while it rotates, but much less frequently. So so this is a completely different, and as you can see that such a subtle difference in the barrier could change at the population of these different torsions. We don't, this is in preparation, so we don't give you but I can certainly talk with the Will more details about this. So let me move on to the MRSF itself, because in addition to those excited state phenomena, MRSF also can calculate all of this. So let me just briefly mention what other MRSF can do. For example, as I already told you, to describe diradicals, you have to have these configurations, open shell singlet, we call it. So electrons are separated, right? But then the singlet, this is triplet, right? This is singlet. This is we call open shell singlet. And also we have to have a double excited configuration. Sometimes you do have these two configurations to describe this. At least you need these 4 configurations to describe this very strongly correlated case. DFT only have this one configuration, right? That's why DFT has a trouble. But now we have all of this, including, and then more, right? So we try this, and this is Anna Krylov's EOM spin flip CCSD DT. As compared to experimental value, this is a singlet triplet gap, okay? I think people are really interested in getting this number accurate, right? So we have about the 0.14 accuracy, MAE, mean absolute error. And also if you compare to experimental value, even sign is correct in everywhere, right? Sometimes if it's completely dissociated, then the triplet should be lower, right? The Hund's rule is telling you, right? But is there a slight some interaction between 2 electrons, then singlet can be slightly lower. So the sign change means that, and looks like that the theory is giving you the right orders and the right numbers. Is very accurate. And you can also certainly study Young-Taylor distortion. Young-Taylor, again, is due to the molecular symmetry. And this simple molecule, D3H, is high symmetry. If you, at the high symmetry, 2 singlets are degenerate. Again, DFT, TDDFT, you cannot calculate this, right? Because you cannot generate this in the case of a DFT. TDDFT also is an issue here. Because we need the doubles, right? Doubles simply doesn't have it. But our theory has all these configurations. Therefore, we were able to get here degeneracy here with a high molecular symmetry. And then once you distort the molecular symmetry by distorting bond lengths as well as torsions, this degeneracy is lifted, and then you have a splitting of two energy singlets, right? So this is perfectly describable by this. Bond breaking. I think this is really important for the Professor Tangju, because he is interested in chemical reactions, bond breaking, right? And this is H2 dissociation. If you do the DFT, TDDFT, bond breaking ground state, this black is ground states. Okay, so ground state has to be calculated DFT, right? So this is a DFT. And this is the proper dissociation energy curve, but it usually are higher than that. So this is because of single reference. Of course, you can use, some people try to use some functional level corrections to this, but to me, is fundamental. There is a fundamental reason behind this, because you do need a multi-reference to properly have a proper dissociation curve like this. And here, again, another point I would like to mention is that the third excited state is the double excited configuration like this, okay? We do have it, but TDDFT is simply missing. So you ask excited state from TDDFT, TDDFT will give you something, but sometimes there are some important states are missing there, but people simply doesn't know those missing ones, right? But in this particular case, the third excited state has a double excited character, which is simply missing here. And let me show you how important this doubles. If you stretch a bond, meaning that you try to break the bond, okay, try to break the bond, and then this third excited state is having the avoided crossing with second excited state, meaning that double excited character is transferred to the second excited state. And the second excited state, again, is having a really mild avoided crossing with ground states. Again, the transferring double excited configuration to the ground states. That is why it could have a proper asymptotic bond breaking. But I'm not saying that this dissociation energy is correct with our theory, because it's a subjective to the functionals, right? So, but anyway, asymptotic, the shape is correct. So we haven't really explored this area to get the accurate dissociation energy. So I think that we probably need to develop new functionals for this particular case, but certainly I think at least we have a basic, the shape is correct. So I think we can do many things for the bond breaking, which means the chemical reactions, right? We also try this X-ray absorption with this. TDDFT is one of the popular theory for the X-ray absorption for quite a long time. But if you use TDDFT, you are off by more than 10 electron volt. Why? It's because that once you have a core excitation, what you actually have is a core hole, right? There is only one electron in the core. You do have a 2 electron there, but because of excitation, you just have 1 electron. We call it core hole. And because of this, the orbital needs to be relaxed by this phenomenon. But there is no way you can do it with the TDDFT, unless you do some other delta SSCF or some other technique you can try. But still, in the TDDF level, there is no general way to do it. But very fortunately, we can do it very easily because we do have already 2 open orbitals, right? So we simply switch this with the core, and we keep it during SSCF, right? Then you can have this singly occupied orbital here and there. You can use a maximum orbital method or some simple restriction method. It's very easy to optimize this because it is clearly separated orbitals. Then you do the response on top of it. Then this issue can be eliminated, and we got very, very accurate, almost a half electron volt accuracy we can obtain. With this, you can also calculate the X-ray absorption of excited state too. Excited state means that you have a valence hole. For example, pi star excitation, you have a hole and one electron goes up there, right? Or n pi star, you have a hole in the n and pi star electrons. And so all we need to do is we need to excite the core electron to this hole. Normally, you excite your electron from your core to your valence, but you can also do this to valence hole, right? That by doing this, you can calculate X-ray absorption of excited states. Recently, we also finished up the relativistic version of our theory, because we do need this because to describe the inter-system crossing. I think Will also very much interested in, but we want to make it efficient. So typically, 4 components is very expensive, so we use a 2-component, much economic way. And but then we describe this spin orbit both of 1 and 2 electron both, because most other simple theory all simply use a 1 electron term, but that's not accurate. You do need 2 electron terms here, but we do the 2 electron term in a simpler way. But anyway, you do need to use both 1 and 2 electron terms to get it to be more accurate. We compare this one of the important splitting. This is a carbon, in this case, carbon atoms, and we compare it against a very, very high level theory. Y-axis is the error as compared to experimental data. So small number is better, right? And so, 4 components error is about here with different basis set, but our numbers are slightly better than even highest level of theory. So we are getting quite quantitatively accurate numbers. Okay, let me also emphasize another important topics. You might want to use it, is that we also extend our theory to using extended Coulomb theorem. With this, we derive the very interesting equation, very interesting eigenvalue equations. Without it, you really have to use the ion system to calculate ionization potentials and electron affinity. To calculate those, people have to use a delta SCF method, because basically you calculate neutral and ions, right? And you subtract them, then you get the ionization potential or electron affinity. Or in other case, in the case of Anna Krylov, you do sort of the removing electron from kind of way to generate these to calculate ionization potentials and electron affinity, but you don't need to do anything. You just calculate neutral and you get the ionization potentials and electron affinity by using these simple equations. So with this, you can recover molecular orbital picture from any non-SSCF theories and any states. So you can easily explain here, in the case of why n pi star is lower than pi star in the case of thiamine, for example. What we observed is that because of the, you see that this is a parenthesis is a Dyson norm. So this describes the sort of number of electrons. So you need to multiply by 2, which gives you the correct number of electrons. But anyway, if you excite the 1 electron from your non-bonding to your pi star, non-bonding means that you have 2 electrons with just a single atoms, right? So the electrons in non-bonding, they don't like each other. They are too close, so that So because it's trapped by the one single atom. So there are large repulsions between electrons in non-bonding. So if you bring this guy to another orbitals, one electron there is happy. So what we found is that the orbital energy of this singly occupied orbital gets really stabilized. That is the reason why the M pi star in this case is lower than. So you can describe this. Another important aspect of this is that now you can recover the orbital pictures from any correlated theories. You can generate the band structure. Typically, to generate band structure, you have to use DRT because then you get the orbital energies, so that you can. These are virtually the orbital energies, right? But in other correlated theory, there is no way you can get those information. But with that method, you can generate it. Here, actually, we tried it. So we actually generated band calculations. So basically, what we found here is that so the black curve here, this is actually polyacin. Black curve here are the from the DFT. Okay, so DFT has band gap of this much. But we use in our theory almost parallel in other cases, but the band gap increases. So we clearly think that this has to do with the non-dynamic or strong correlation effects to the band structure. So we are very much interested in to develop the theory for the solid state using these techniques. And certainly, you might also have questions about the right functionals. Most of the exchange correlation functionals were developed for the ground state properties. So, but this is the excited states. So choices are very limited. So we have to do something. So we try to develop the better functionals. We did not want it to, but we have a strong pressure to do it. So what we did here is that, as I already showed you, that to calculate response calculations, you first have to do the reference DFT calculations, and then you do the response, right? You have actually completely separated two different parts. And also, there is no reason that you have to use the same functional for both ground and response. And therefore, we actually try to use different functionals for the ground, SCF part, and response parts. And we just do some numerical test here. What we found is that in all of these functionals, right, you're probably familiar with these functionals, with different percentage of exact exchange, all these functionals, the prediction accuracy is improved by choosing the different functional for the response parts. And so we were quite surprised that based on this, we're trying to fit better functionals. And so we kind of developed what kind of idea of we call it double tuning, because we tune both ground, DFT, and the response, right? So double tuning comes from that. And then we compare that, and we tried this with the one of the system the Martin had gotten a long time ago, and they actually developed the omega B 97XD, right? So which is here, and then the correct number is supposed to be this dotted the purple dotted line, which is XMCQDPT2. And then this is the CT state energy. Still not good, although, I mean, omega B 97X might be the one your first choice, right? But in terms of energy-wise, still it cannot properly describe this, right? However, our new theory, which is the red curve here, is very close to the XMCQDPT2. We were quite surprised that this particular functional described this CT states quite well. We also try this for the probably one of the important molecule, RPSP6+, which is the model system for the retinol. And we tried it, and it works really very nicely as compared to XMS-COS-PT2. So we were also satisfied with the functionals. So now, what will be the future of our theory? We wish to expand the capability of our theory because we also want to add more configurations. Right now, we have 2 references. Maybe there may be more way to include more references. Another perspective would be then the better Saltito equation. People these days are quite fashionable. We can combine them. It's not that difficult to do. And also, we can also apply the same idea to the ADC and the others. And we also have a new software dedicated for this. And this is basically Python wrapper. So you can easily modify with our program. You can easily combine your program with ours. So the conclusion would be that looks like that our new theory seems to properly describe the potential surface, including conical section regions, so that we could do proper non-adiabatic molecular dynamic simulations. And because of this, we are starting to discover new phenomena in the photochemical processes. And so our theory expands the application scope of DFT, TDDFT, simpler TDDFT, as well as CASA-CR, because we overcome the limitations of those. And this theory is in games right now. You can download it. You can give it a try. And we have some input examples here, so you can simply try some input examples. And I'd like to thank all my people and funding agencies. And thanks very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thanks, Cheol, for a very nice talk. Do we have any questions in the audience? You can just go ahead and unmute and ask your question. Okay, if not, maybe I'll ask the first question. Do you know if MRSF is size consistent and size extensive? Have you thought about that?
Oh, okay. Okay.
As we start to push it to larger systems, are we going to recover the correlation energy is extensive, for example?
Yeah, okay. We haven't really thought about it. And maybe we better try it. But I think that there's some limitations because response configuration-wise is limited. And so we do see some missing configurations to properly do it. But on the other hand, DFT, there's a mysterious exchange correlation functionals, right? That will somehow take care of some part.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even the admirable Choi said that exchange correlation function has a non-dynamic correlation somehow, right? Of course, somehow, but we don't know. So it really is subjective. So it would be a good test to check cases. But if there are cases where clearly open systems, there might be some limitation in that case. So one of the things that we wish to do is that, what is that? So four electrons are all open cases, phenomena. That is something that's challenging, and that I don't think that we have enough configuration for that. So in such cases, it will not work very well. But somehow exchange correlation function might recover if you can develop that. So yeah. So maybe I speak too much of theoretical part. So
So other questions from audience?
Oh, hi, Professor. Sorry, I have a small question about the bound-breaking calculation. I want to ask more details about the efficiency. So when I use your method, so compared with the normal DFT methods, how about the efficiency? For example, the computational resource we use is comparable to the maybe omega B 97 or maybe a little bit expensive than that.
you mean are you talking about the accuracy or
The efficiency.
efficiency, meaning that the computation time?
Yeah.
Okay, it's fast.
Okay.
And
It's comparable with omega 97, right?
you mean the omega 97? Omega
I mean
97.
compared with the normal DFT methods. So how about the computational time for your method? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that I have a slide for that. So I think that this is the one. Okay. So the red curve, you can consider this is a DFT timing. Okay.
Okay.
And the black is extra calculation timing you have to do in addition to.
Yeah, I understand. Okay.
If you add these two, you got but it's fraction, right? So you don't need to spend too much time to do it.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, if not, then let's thank Cheol again for a great talk. And I think now you have some meetings with one-on-one meetings with faculty and students.
Okay.
So, thanks, everyone.
Okay.
And,
Thank you very much for listening.
of course, thank you.
Bye now.
Bye now.
Okay.